When you find yourself doing the same things over again that you did the previous day, like a whole series of commands or the same manipulation of data with the same file, you'll probably ask yourself that there must be some way to automate this. There's a concept called macro. This is just a way to take a single action that encompasses or includes many different actions. We'll begin with a few small ideas. Maybe in this particular worksheet, which is the HR list, you'll look at this list and you flag certain cells because you want some adjustments made. After selecting a given cell, you can give it a yellow background, make it bold and italics and use red font, maybe add a border, etc. Now if you're doing it elsewhere nearby, you could copy the format, but if you use it down here or elsewhere, you start going through that same sequence again. It would be great if you just had a keystroke shortcut and have the same appearance elsewhere. In one way, you've been using macros all along, but under a different name. Almost everybody using Excel knows how to make cells bold, but if you could imagine someone not knowing that, how do you make a cell bold? If the Home tab's not active, you can go there, click the dialog box launcher. You could right click and choose Format Cells. If it doesn't take you to the Font tab, you can go there first, Font tab, choose Bold and click OK. You can imagine someone who was doing that after a few times wishing there was a faster way of doing that, and there is. These buttons may not be called macros, but in a certain sense they are and represent a longer command sequence. Also, if someone leaves the company, you don't want to remove their names just yet. You indicate that they've left by applying strike through. We could get to strike through the same dialog box, or go to Format Cells, click the Font tab and then choose strike through. Later you might discover there's a keystroke shortcut for this. It's Control 5. It's fast and simple, and although we don't call it a macro, it kind of is. A single action that takes the place of multiple steps. So here we have a pricing sheet which is a bit of a mess, and maybe you are often confronted with worksheets that have files of formulas in them. One of the things you would want to do is find those formula cells quickly. On the Home tab, and find and select. If you clicked on the single cell and choose formulas, all the formula cells in this worksheet are highlighted. When you do that, you might also want to apply color. This wouldn't take much time, but its companion, one that allows you to highlight just numerical cells, will take a bit longer. You need to be thinking of the things which are annoying to you in terms of being repetitive. If we want to highlight the numerical cells from the Home tab, choose Find and Select and then go to Special option that says Highlight Constants, and we'd just want to see the numbers and click OK. Now imagine if you wanted to use the same sequence in another workbook or worksheet, you don't want to go through the steps over and over again. The idea behind the macro list is to identify the repetitive processes and then use a feature called the macro recorder that allows us to say, let's turn on this recorder and go through the same steps and then save those steps so in the future we can replay them. You'll hear the words play back or run or execute to basically perform all those actions much faster than we could do them manually. The more you work with macros, you might be thinking of larger issues. In this HR list, maybe this is a very dynamic organization, and 2 or 3 times a week you sort this list by department and print 3 copies, and then you sort it by employee name and print a few more copies. You also need to send out a special copy here showing the hourly employees only. So you apply filter showing only the hourly employees and you print the list. Maybe also you sort the list in a different order, then you introduce subtotals. You collapse it to show the subtotals only. So you identify the sequence 2 to 3 times a week. Doesn't take too long, maybe 10 to 12 minutes. But what if we could automate that sequence? You can turn on the macro recorder, go through those steps, save the macro, and then in the future when you want to execute those steps, we'll press perhaps a keystroke shortcut, or maybe a new button up in the quick access toolbar, or maybe even a graphic in the current worksheet that lets you accomplish those tasks in seconds rather than taking 10 to 12 minutes. You'd save an enormous amount of time. So we're setting the stage for the idea that if you identify repetitive processes, you can use the macro recorder to turn them into features that you can access immediately.